Behold the voice of God.
For those of you who don't know me officially, my name is Amanda Waller.
And I am Aaron Moss, your host of Task Force X.
What, we some kind of Suicide Squad?
Well, yeah, that and
Checkmate.
Task Force X is a podcast that tells the stories of John Ostrander's Suicide Squad and Paul Kupperberg's Checkmate from the late 80s, early 90s.
I want to build a team of some bad people who can do some good.
And that's what Suicide Squad is. While Checkmate is a team of good people doing some good. My mission here is to chronicle each and every title and all the books that Suicide Squad and Checkmate appeared in during that era.
We're the U.S. government. You're going to start a blog and expose us?
Well, a blog and a headcast, Amanda.
Those scumbags are trying to screw me.
Not at all, Amanda. Just trying to help everyone else discover the joy of the Suicide Squad and Checkmate. Anywho, hope you guys have as much fun with these comics as I did when I first read them. Oh, so many years ago.
Mother...
That's enough of that, Amanda. Let's go and start the show.
I didn't believe the stories.
Nobody does. Remember, I'm watching. I see everything.
And welcome back to Task Force X. This is episode 51. This month, normally I do this show alone, but this month I have a special guest joining me. Let's give a big welcome to Tim Price. Hey, Tim.
Hey, thanks for having me, Aaron.
Oh, no problem. I've talked to people, about my different podcasts, and I've had several people say I do better with other people. So at least if I get some people on this show to help liven things up a little bit and improve things I can.
I hope you can get somebody better next time than me. So I'll hold out hope for that.
I'm sure you'll do fun. Yeah, you can't do any worse than I do. So.
Don't make it a challenge. That's a bad thing. Starting down that road. Oh no.
Well, before we get started, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself? What you do and your Task Force X origins. What you think about Suicide Squad and Checkmate and how you came into them.
Sure, glad to. Well, I've been collecting comics since like the late 70s, early 80s, and just the era that Checkmate and Suicide Squad came in from the era you're talking about, especially, it was like I was deep in my comic book collecting at that time. I was spending so much money every week on that time. So, but this was some great books going out at that time. There's some really great stuff during that whole era. So I had a lot of a love for that. And yeah, it's like in terms of podcasting, I'm regularly on the Right On Network's Cassandra Kane Batgirl podcast with Ashford Wright. So that's been a lot of fun. And I've been bopping around on other people's podcasts, crashing them here and there, just like I'm doing to yours. So, that's what I do. But yeah, so for both of these books in this time frame, I tried out Suicide Squad like the first couple issues. And I was like, it didn't quite hook me right away. But I would kind of come back to it here and there. And I was a big fan of the Justice League International. So I had to get issue number 13, obviously.
Of course.
Obviously. So now that issue was great. And also, I got other issues here and there, like, the Millennium crossover, the less said that, the better. And other things here and there, because they'd have interesting guest stars. So that was kind of fun. But then when they had the Captain Boomerang Mirror Master issue, I was hooked. So that one was so much fun. And I kind of got the book at that point. It's like, oh yeah, this is a book about very bad people.
Yeah, very much so.
Yes. And I was finishing college. So it's like, I was ready to kind of explore some of the darker side of things at that point. That's not unusual for people in your college days, kind of branching out. But I'm, definitely a Jedi, not a Sith. I'm a Gryffindor or Hufflepuff, not a Slytherin. So it's not really my wheelhouse normally. But there was something about the book at the time, something about that book and the characters that were, trying to do the right thing and just having such trouble. So it really hooked me from that point on. So I just collected all the way through the end and made sure that I went back and got all of the back issues that I had missed. So that was a great, great time. And I did have the pleasure of seeing John Ostrander at Baltimore Comic Con 2 years ago. And I got so many things signed by him. The poor man. I think he had to stretch his hand out afterwards from the cramps, but he was so gracious about it. And he was, loved talking up his books. And then there was Checkmate. And I did try that when it first came out, especially because of the tie to Suicide Squad. Right. And I gave it the good solid first year. And then I kind of just let it go. I think it just allows, these things come and go in terms of, well, I kind of got to watch my finances a little bit. So, that happens there too. And something about it maybe didn't grab me as much as other books at the time. But it's been interesting because I've reread a couple issues in the last year or so and going like, why did I drop this book? This has been fun. It's not, it's a very different kind of storytelling that's going on in Suicide Squad.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah. And, you can kind of see Kupperberg's style is very heavy in it. So I was like, yeah, okay. Yeah. It's not one that necessarily grabbed me as much. I mean, I remembered him more from his couple year run on Doom Patrol just before Grant Morrison took over.
That was a great book.
Oh, yeah. But it's not that I didn't like the Kupperberg run. I actually like the Kupperberg run. But the Grant Morrison run, it's like you just can't compare the two. It's like it's totally it's unfair to compare the two. But Kupperberg's one was still like it was solid. It was solid superhero fun. So
Kupperberg was more of a pure superhero run, where Grant Morrison was a Grant Morrison run. It was very weird and wacky and all sorts of stuff intertwined in there. So yeah, very, very different creatures. Those two runs.
Absolutely. That's a very fair way of putting it. But so I gave that, gave it that first year try. I was like, okay, all right, I get it. But it's like, kind of faded from that. I guess that first year did. Now that might not have overlapped with the Janus Directive, but I definitely got the Janus Directive because
the Janus Directive was a little bit later than that.
Yeah, because of its crossover between between the Suicide Squad and the other couple of books. So like Manhunter. I did, little plug there for another show that you're kind of interested in.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, man. But so that's, and I hadn't really gotten back into any of the newer versions of the Suicide Squad or Checkmate or anything like that. It's like I've gotten much more. My collecting has gotten much smaller.
I hear you.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun though with the DCU app and the Marvel Unlimited app. I just, I don't know how I have time to work anymore because frankly, there's just so many great series that I've never read. And it's like they're there. It's like, oh, it's been a joy to see those. Yeah. So, but that's one of those things where it's like, now I kind of got the itch to maybe I should check out the rest of the Checkmate run because it's not like it's that long.
Right.
I could check 3. Yeah. I could read the whole thing. And it'd just be great fun just to see what it turned out like.
Oh, yeah, very much so. Well, thank you very much. And I say it's a pleasure having you on board. Let's go ahead and get started with what we're here for. So the first book we're going to look at this month is Checkmate number 23. This was a cover date of December of 1989. The on-sale date was October 31st, 1989. Price was $1.50. The title was Peaceful Nights. Writer was Paul Kupperberg. Penciler was Steve Irwin. Inker, Al Vey. Letterer, John Costanza. Colorist, Juliana Freder. Editor was Jonathan Peterson. And the cover was done by Steve Irwin. And the synopsis for this one, I pulled this from Mike's Amazing World of Comics. Several scientific leaders of their fields of study have met recent death by the hands of an assassin. Peacemaker searches for the killer by attacking underworld informants around Europe. One of the next targets of the assassin is Braddock, a scientist working for Checkmate, who is currently examining the remains of Bishop's armor. Elsewhere, Harvey Bullock continues to bring Blackthorn into Checkmate. So, Tim, let's go and start with the cover first. Talk about that a little bit. So the cover on this one, we got Peacemaker saying, just a close-up of his face saying, "Buy or die." He's got his gun in his hand. What are your thoughts on this cover?
If you did not know that Peacemaker was insane, you would know it from just his cover alone. It's like just the facial expression is just scary. It's scary, chilling. I love it. Everything about it. The way he's got the smile, but the folds and like the chin is like, it's really like, I'm really tense while I'm smiling here. It's beautiful. And even the eyes behind the eye slits there, it's like, there's something about them that, they're really looking at you, the reader. And that was very unsettling. So I really like this cover, and it's kind of surprising that the title of the book isn't Peacemaker with this being on the cover, but but I do love that. And even like the little detail that Peacemaker's hand, you can see a thumb of his other glove. He's got, obviously one hand is holding the gun that you can see the barrel of, but he's holding like somebody's green shirt in the other hand, and but all we see is the shirt. So it's like he's holding us, the reader. And I'm wearing a green sweater right now, so that's very unsettling.
Maybe he's holding you. What are you doing, Tim?
That's what I'm afraid of. That's what I'd be afraid of. So this is really a great cover. Also, I think that the colorist did a fantastic job of kind of changing the shading of his helmets, that you get the reflection really comes across, and it's like it's bright in the middle, then fades out to the edges. I think they've been doing digital coloring by now.
I believe so.
Yeah. And so and it's not like it makes it any easier to do it digitally, but it gives you a little more control. But I thought this came across really great. What do you think of this cover?
Oh, I really like it. To me, it's kind of very reminiscent of the covers, buy this issue or something's going to happen. I know She-Hulk did that. Justice League Europe did that. A lot of other titles, She-Hulk did, buy this cover. I'm going to come to your house for your X-Men comics and things like that. So it's kind of reminiscent about that, except for, it's not, Peacemaker. So he's not going to go into detail, buy this comic or this is going to happen. It's just, he's very blunt to the point, buy this or die. Your choice, So I like that. And like you said, even though he's got a big helmet on, all you can see is his lower face, his jaw, and his eyes. Mm-hmm. The artist did a great job conveying, like you said, if you didn't know he was crazy, this cover conveys it alone with just, like you said, his eyes and just his lower mouth or his lower face. Mm-hmm. Very much shows that, he's not quite playing with a full deck, as they say.
Absolutely.
But this is a great book. I bought it when it came out, and I was buying this I started like around issue 8 or 9, I think it was, and I bought the entire run just because I was addicted to comics, and I had an issue. I had a problem at the time.
Haven't we all?
Comic shop guy. I got to tell the comic shop guy, I'm just going to sign my checks over to you guys and just be done with it. Be easier.
It cuts out the middleman, that's for sure.
Very much so. But I was definitely buying almost every DC Marvel comic at this time, and I was loving Checkmate. So
lots of love
itself. So yes, very much so. Yeah, great book. Let's move on to the actual story itself. So, what are your initial thoughts on this issue, on the story? Any thoughts that you want to?
Well, I'll go straight to the title. It's that now, thanks to Batman: The Dark Knight, every time you see something like Peaceful Nights, it has to be spelled with a K, not Peaceful Nights with an N. So it's like, it's fine. It's fine. I'm just picking on it because it's become a trope. It's now a trope to do that. But hey,
But in this book, it's a little more acceptable, in my opinion, because we are dealing with Checkmate Knights. So
this is true.
It's a little more acceptable here. But I see where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm. But it's one of those things where jumping into this one, I had to reading it. I was going, how many details did I miss from previous issues, and how much was continued from previous things? Because it's not definitely giving that brand new reader, let's get you up to speed sort of thing. There's some parts that kind of help continue the stories that have been going on before, like the investigation into who is Bishop, and even seeing maybe some of like Peacemaker's backstory itself come along. The story with Blackthorn and Harvey and Val Vostok. And so those are all kind of like pulling together. I could see where those things were coming along. But then there are the other parts of the story, which is like, okay, was this something that he just jumped into with this issue, or am I missing something from the previous one that could have helped out? I didn't really feel like I was missing anything, but it also didn't feel like I was necessarily, if there was anything there, I just couldn't tell.
Right. Well, question for you. Before this series, Paul worked on the Vigilante comic book.
Okay.
And
yeah.
these threads Vigilante came over here. Harvey was over there. Blackthorn over Vigilante. He brought them all over when he did Checkmate. It's kind of like a continuation of Vigilante. Did you read that Vigilante book by any chance?
I did not, but I did know that there was. I did know of the Kupperberg Vigilante pulls and things. I think that was even in like the early issues, letters pages. They often talked about that. Too, so, but yeah, so I knew Blackthorn was also characters there.
Right. And that's where some of this, her connection with Harvey Bullock comes from is the Vigilante book is where that started at, and then they brought it over into here. And a lot of this is ongoing subplot from the last couple issues.
Yeah, right. The big story of Peacemaker trying to find this blonde-haired killer assassin who's going around and killing doctors and scientists and stuff. Is to me, that felt like that was the biggest part of the story. They did a good job of kind of like leading us along and seeing where things are going and seeing how Peacemaker approaches a mystery, which is to kill people as much as he can along the way. Not really the world's greatest detective approach, but so it's if you're into that, it's a great story. It's like, oh my gosh, he's definitely taking people out left and right to figure out what he wants to know. So I'm pretty entertained by that. That was definitely the biggest part where I was like, is this part that's been continued on, from something earlier? Has this been building for a while, or is it like, nope, we're just jumping into it right now and seeing how it goes from there?
Well, the Peacemaker, he's been around doing different things, but if I'm not mistaken, this is, as far as the blonde-haired killer, this is where he first shows up, and this is the start of that storyline.
Gotcha.
But yeah, we're continuing on with the Peacemaker, and as we see in a couple panel pages here, we do see that he is. If the cover conveys insanity, the fact that he's talking to his dead father and shooting at his dead father in the plane kind of help conveys that he is a little bit on the insane side.
Yeah,
just a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I really like that page 8, where we have that whole sequence on Peacemaker's helicopter,
right?
Because when it first comes up and we see that downward shot of Peacemaker sitting in the chair, and we see a man sitting next to him with a swastika on his arm, and for a second there, it's like, what? Who is that? And then I remembered, oh yes, I did know about that. He's haunted by his father, and his father was a Nazi, so I did know that. But it's been a little while since I actually saw it, and that's one thing where Steve Irwin's art style, I think, actually really worked so well here in that he is very grounded. So that almost makes it more shocking to see kind of a matter of fact. Yeah, it's just a gentleman sitting there in the Nazi uniform. But then the downward angle, you can't see, and the downward angle means you can't see Peacemaker's father's face at the same time. You just see the uniform. So I thought that was a very effective way of bringing that scene, starting that scene where we have him talking to his dead father, which never goes well.
Usually not, no. Especially when your dead father's a Nazi. That tends to not go well.
Oh, yeah. And we learn a lot about Peacemaker in that whole sequence, because we get to see that, like, yes, he obviously he hates his father, hates what he stood for, and still has a part of him that wants to please him and is sorry that he's gone. You can get that from there. It's like, it's a fascinating take on the character. So I enjoyed that part quite a bit.
Oh no, I thought Paul Kupperberg did a great job of kind of, like I say, if you don't know who Peacemaker is, if you don't know his history, this kind of, like I said, that is insane. Again, I know the origins, so I think that the way they're showing, the father killed himself, it kind of shows that where they got the way the drawings done there. And like you said, he got a love for his father and he wants to please him, but on the other hand, he's irritated that his father's always showing up giving him unwanted advice, because that's what parents do. They show up giving you unwanted advice.
Absolutely. And that's where I think the haunting part too is that it's part of his insanity, but it's still a haunting in that way. It's like, yes, he's going to show up and just be trouble. So, and freak him out. So it's good stuff. I also, the next sequence right after that was right with Harvey Bullock and Val Vostok and Blackthorn. Right. And that was interesting to me, because I hadn't seen, so that was definitely a thing where I'd seen them in Janus Directive, but I hadn't seen this part. And it's like, I was very surprised to see Val being quite angry with Harvey. That was a really interesting sequence. I mean, what's the story about that? Has that been building for a little while?
Yeah, and Val Vostok, for those that don't know, was in Paul Kupperberg's Doom Patrol run. She was a negative woman. And then after she lost the powers and then went back to Negative Man, yeah, she's kind of went back more to the spy agency. If I'm not mistaken, she was in the Vigilante right at the tail end. If I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since I've read that run. But yeah, her and Harvey's been kind of butting heads since she showed up in this book.
Gotcha.
And like Harvey said, she's used to being the boss, so she doesn't take too kindly to having to follow orders, not having all some of the control. But yeah, no, I like you. Agree with you. That's a very interesting scene. I do love the way that plays out. And again, and a lot of it is that she doesn't trust Blackthorn, because Blackthorn is a vigilante, and she's not just like a Superman vigilante. She's actually more of a Batman type that will do what she needs to do. She don't mind taking more so than Batman. She doesn't mind shooting people if need be. So that's her big, and she doesn't trust Blackthorn.
Right. And I did like those couple pages there. The face expressions are really great.
Oh, very much so.
I mean, I love how Harvey is got his sneer going a lot, and Val has a lot of angry face, but it's not the same angry face every time. So it's really very good. I enjoyed that quite a bit. What artist does that remind me of? Brian Bolland. It's kind of giving me like a Brian Bolland kind of vibe.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I can see that now that you mention it. Yeah.
Yeah. And like when you get to Blackthorn at the bottom of page 12, where she's got her smile on there, it's like that's a little Bolland kind of facial expression there. So, but yeah, that's all fun. And Blackthorn showing that, yeah, I don't really have that much respect for anybody with her feet up on Harvey's desk. So that's no surprise that. But he smacks her hand away from his Danish, which I thought was hilarious.
You never mess with Fat Man's food.
No.
Because of Fat Man, this is true. You don't try to take a Fat Man's food.
Yeah, you got a finger
that same page. I'd be like, yeah. It's like somebody kids sometimes you'll pull back a nub. Eat your arm if need be.
Oh gosh.
And I do like that same page on the top where she's talking about how her and Amanda Waller came to blows, and it alludes to an earlier issue where Blackthorn Amanda Waller tried to get rid of Blackthorn, but thanks to Bullock's help, she was able to get enough information on Amanda Waller, so Amanda will leave her alone. So I do like that reference. And again, something you don't see a lot nowadays, which I've complained about all over the place, is that it actually has editor's notes here that tells you where to refer back to if you want to know more about that.
Right.
That's one of my big complaints last decade or two is that, they seem to do away with, the editor's notes referring to other issues went away, and now they're back, but they're usually referring to trade paperbacks.
Oh.
Which I'm like,
yeah,
I'd rather refer to the issue itself,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's just old school me, I guess. But.
Yeah, I like them. They were so critical back before we had the internet.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's really that's understandable. But it's like still, for the collector, it's really nice to be able to have that be that more direct reference. It makes it feel like part of a bigger part of the continuity. I guess that's what I really more from an aesthetic. It's like it feels like it makes the whole continuity feel like it's important, rather than it being the trade paperback, which really is a marketing thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I've ranted about is, the whole writing for the trades. And I understand why they do it, but it doesn't mean I have to like it.
Right. Sure. Well, I don't mind them writing for the trades themselves, because if anything that's keeping the comics industry going, I'm happy with. That's right. So I don't mind that. I mean, if that market really is helpful, yeah. But it's like, no, I don't have any skin in that game.
Well, my thought on it is, even before they started writing for the trades, they still put stuff in trades. Instead of one storyline, they'll put like maybe two storylines or a storyline and one or two one and dones. So it's still possible to have trade paperbacks without the whole writing for the trades mentality, in my opinion.
Sure.
But I'm not a professional, so what do I know?
Well,
my buddy at work.
Mm-hmm.
I said, my buddy at work always says, "There's greater minds than ours at work." I'm like, I doubt that, but okay, we'll go for it.
Yeah. Well, and then there's with Kupperberg's way of handling continuity himself. I as I understand it, I mean, not like I've read not like I've really researched as much, but it's like it sounds like he was the kind who really played it loose, where he'd like not really know what he was going to do the next issue until he was writing the next issue.
Yeah, kind of like Larry Hama does on G.I. Joe.
Yeah, exactly. So I could see that without a trade to write for back then, if he was still writing as much today, and it might not really, he would probably have to change his writing style in order to work that way. And that's kind of a bummer, because that would kind of completely change the style of how he writes. And it's like, you don't know what's going to happen because he doesn't know what's going to happen. That's great.
Oh yeah, no, it's much a mystery to them as it is us. It's very, I like that. It's just, this is what happens and what's going to happen next. Let's figure it out and see together.
Oh yeah, exactly. Well, after that part, we get into this sequence at a London bar with Peacemaker following up his leads. And that's a pretty brutal fight that we get into here. But I wanted to ask you first, because I started noticing all the signs that were in the background on a couple of the panels and other things that were highlighted. And I had to look them up because I was just I was trying to do my part. So like on the top of page 14, there's a panel there where Willie, the guy that Peacemaker's looking for, is on the phone. And it's like a Penfolds premium beer. That appears to be an actual a real brand from London. Old Sod Lager is probably not, but Old Sod is a British phrase, so that's not too surprising. But then Sly McCoy's dark beer, most likely that's a reference to Sylvester McCoy, who was one of the doctors. I know I have the note here. Where did I put that note? Oh yeah, so he was like the 7th Doctor on Doctor Who. So that's pretty funny. That's pretty cool that they.
Yes, I didn't catch that because with my eyesight, it's hard for me to read those signs in the background, so I didn't make that out. But that's a very nice touch.
I am going through on the DCU app and using the panel zoom on that to help me read them. Oh. Otherwise, I'd be out of luck. But so with that, it's like, okay, there's got to be more Easter eggs in here. So I was looking for more Easter eggs. And then at the bottom of the page is another panel where we got like a Pepsi logo, Irish whiskey, Peterson candy. Peterson candy is actually another authentic British candy brand. Yeah. Now that at the top, you can barely make out the Colonel K lager. And best guess, that's a reference to Colonel K, who was a character on Danger Mouse and was his boss.
He's the greatest. He's fantastic. Wherever there is danger, he'll be there. He's the ace. He's amazing. He's the strongest. He's the quickest. He's the best. Danger Mouse. Danger Mouse. Danger Mouse.
Oh, I forgot about that.
And yeah. And so I looked it up. It's like, okay, yeah, that also tracks. Is in the right time period for that. So that was pretty crazy. And at the bottom there's a lion, Coco, and that's apparently another authentic British thing. So that's still fun.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. See, the Peterson candy, I thought maybe that was not necessarily a jab. I thought that was a reference to the editor Jonathan Peterson. Is what I racked it up to be. I didn't realize.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize it was actual candy.
It could be both. It seems like that Kupperberg or somebody did their research on some British brands, so that's pretty fun. But of course, what actually got me started even looking for those was on page 17, because they're in the back of the bar and they're knocking like crates over. One of the crates that's upside down is Black Adder liqueurs, and I think you're already catching what that's got to be from.
What's this guy's name? I forget his name now. The actor. The British TV series.
Yeah. Atkinson.
There you go. Rowan Atkinson.
Rowan Atkinson. Yep. And his show, Black Adder. So I looked. Yep.
My wife started dating. She was a big fan of that. So we watched a lot of those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I double checked the years of that, and it's like, oh yeah, that show ran from 1983 to 1989 in its initial seasons. So that tracks perfectly for it being a reference to that. And then near the bottom of that page is like a panel that's like the second from the bottom. There's one that's called Old Janks. Now, I'm going to be a failure on this one for my nerd cred because that's a reference from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Oh, okay.
And I've read most of the series, I think, but only like once. It's like and it's really been good. I mean, it's really great. I mean, I loved it when I read it, but it's like I didn't read it back in the day when it first came out. But I looked up and it's like, yeah, that's a drink from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So
okay, I read that years ago also.
Mm-hmm. They were having fun with the Easter eggs in that section. So that's pretty cool. I gotta give them props. They really slipped those in.
Oh, very much so. And I did comment real quick before going further earlier when they were looking at the suit and talking about the supposedly who may be behind it. Yeah, that's a continuation from like I say that suit showed up early in the run. It was also in the, if I'm not mistaken, it was also in the Janus Directive crossover.
Mm.
And yeah, they've been trying to figure out who this mystery man is. And so, yeah, they've been laying clues throughout that it could be one of these two knights that supposedly died and came back to life.
Right.
So that's an ongoing subplot.
Well, in the fight in the back of the bar, that was a pretty brutal fight. And the only things that were also happening there is that Peacemaker just like mows down 3 guys, 4 guys, and it was very, very much a good reminder that he's definitely the Punisher. Yeah, definitely the Punisher. And I wondered, do you think that they were just kind of continuing this style character since Kupperberg had already written Vigilante like this, and just kind of like giving a new character that he could kind of continue to do these kinds of stories have this characterization of? Or was Punisher's growing popularity an influence on getting Peacemaker into the book?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, Peacemaker came from Charlton. So he was basically Charlton's answer to the Punisher, where DC had Vigilante and then they had Wild Dog.
Right.
And so, yeah, they got the Charlton characters. And so I'm assuming, I haven't talked to him about it because I've talked to Paul a couple different times. And so I'm just assuming, yeah, he picked up Peacemaker to bring him over and continue with what he's doing. And yeah, this is just Paul's way to write the Punisher without writing the Punisher.
Exactly. That's what it felt like to me as well.
Yeah, very much. And I think, again, I haven't read any of the Charlton books with Peacemaker in it, but from my understanding, this is kind of continuing what he was doing over there. So
gotcha.
It's just, everyone's got their own version of the Punisher. And, well, since DC has this one, Paul figured him to use.
Exactly. Don't even have to create a new one. Well, and by this point, they'd already killed off the Vigilante again. So they kind of had a gap. They had a gap to fill there.
Yeah, I'm not sure where Wild Dog was at this point. I know he came and went, and then he was showing up in Action Comics Weekly for a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But kind of lost track of Wild Dog at a point.
Right. But Wild Dog that never really took off that much anyway. Yeah. And I don't really think they hadn't really established him as a DC universe character per se.
Right.
He was still like, he could have been his own thing. He could have been part of the DCU. Nope. They hadn't really established that one way or the other. So it could have worked, but
other than appearing in Action Comics Weekly, but he didn't really cross over with anybody for the most part. So
right. Not that I know of. I'm sure the Wild Dog cast will be yelling at us about that. So.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure I'll get a message from Jay. What are you talking about? He crossed over here. Sorry.
But I like the progress we see in the Bishop mystery. It seems like
very much so.
it seems like it's unfolding pretty well.
Yeah. And like I said, the last couple of issues, they've kind of, laid the groundwork, the clues, if you will, that it could be. And so again, it's been so long since I've read these books. I don't remember if it is one of the guys they're suspecting, but so when I'm reading this, the last couple of issues, I'm like, well, I don't know if it seems like they're laying the groundwork, but I don't know if they're laying the groundwork or if this is going to be a red herring. I can't remember now. They're either doing a lot of groundwork here or they're really setting it up, to be a red herring to throw you off what it really is.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I think, and that's one thing they get to in a few issues from now, isn't it? I think it's fairly soon that they get to it.
It can't be too long because I said the series only has like 10 more issues to go. So
right
for this series finished, unfortunately.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's I actually bought these 2 issues at the time because I was very intrigued by the Bishop mystery. It's over the next 2 issues and we solve it in number 25. So,
that's what I was saying was, the next 3-4 issues I thought.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I haven't reread these in years, so I'm just rereading these now for the podcast. So,
right. Well, one thing I wondered if you thought about is, or your opinion on, is whether you felt like there was too much going on in this story, because there's a lot of things in here. I mean, it's not like there's too many to follow, but it did feel a little disjointed with how all the stuff going on, because we have Checkmate trying to figure out who Bishop is. We have the Val Blackthorne Harvey thing. We have Peacemaker and the assassin. And then in addition to that story, they introduce this Interpol agent who's now trying to figure out who the assassin is as well. It's like, and all those things have like little side interactions that are going on around them. So there's a lot of things happening.
Very much so.
So I don't know if it's too much or not.
I can see where you're coming from. I like it. I like the fact that Paul's shoved so much Graham into here that it seems like it could be. I think if it was done by a less talented writer, it could be overloaded, or could be it could be bloated. But I think Paul's got this all wrapped up so nicely in here that he's able to handle these little subplots, and he's got them all kind of tied into one another. I think he does a great job at it. So I don't think it's too much the way Paul's doing it.
Okay,
but a less talented writer than Paul, I think, it could be, slow down a little bit, or to give Peacemaker his own series or something. But I like the way that Paul's doing it, and I think he did a great job on that.
Good. Yeah, I can see that, because I'm now having like little flashbacks to, boy, back in the day, when this was written, there were always like 2 or 3 subplots in addition to the A plot. And there might be even like a couple of C plots going on at the same time. You never knew.
Definitely. And sometimes what may be a C plot actually turns out to be part of the B or A plot. And not to diss current writers, because again, it's a different mentality, it's a different mindset nowadays. But back in the 80s and the early 90s, writers tended to juggle a lot of different things and mix things in the books and try to throw a lot into the books. And that's part of my complaint with a lot of the newer writers and writing for the trade, is that a story that would take 2 or 3 issues back here in the 80s, 90s, 70s, now it takes 6 to 8 issues because they have to stretch it out so much. And there's a lot of fluff in there that these writers here actually, I think, had not so much fluff. They had full books, but they actually had interesting stuff going on. They had actual characterizations and things shoved into there. So, and maybe it's just the fact that I'm getting old. I don't know.
Oh, aren't we all?
One thing I claim it up. So get off my lawn.
Oh man!
But I really do like that the last page on here. Jumping in then real quick, he's opening fire. These guys are hiding behind the tables, and one sticks his head up, and Peacemaker standing there. Hope I'm not too late for dessert. And we're looking at the Peacemaker with a smoking gun, and again, he's got that crazy look in his face. We can't see much of his face, but we can see he's as crazy as a shithouse rat.
Oh man, that's a important kind of character difference between Peacemaker and Punisher, because Punisher doesn't smile.
Right.
No,
he might occasionally, but not like then. And Punisher, while I guess he might be technically clinically insane, he doesn't usually come across that way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, look, like I say, you mentioned on the cover, and the same way here, that look in his Peacemaker's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
He's got that look like he's crazed.
Yeah,
you don't get that much with Punisher, but yeah, here that usually seems to be one of Peacemaker's trademarks. He actually is crazy.
Yeah, he's got crazy eyes all over the place.
Yeah. Oh, very much so. I know some girls like that. That's another story entirely. But
it's like it's not a competition between Punisher and Peacemaker. You both can be crazy, and both your names start with P and end in R. So
right.
You're fine there. But it's like there's definitely exactly. There's definitely a there's a manicness to how they depict Peacemaker that is like that's what's so unsettling.
Yeah, that's where I was trying to think of. Yeah, manic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was that sequence on that last page is like, oh yeah, that's some harsh stuff. Men and women ducking for cover. And it's like, he's not necessarily caring who's going to shoot either.
Yeah, no, if you're in his way, you better watch yourself because you're hanging out with drug lords and people that are scum of the earth. Well, you know what? You're guilt by association, and he doesn't care. The bullets are coming your way.
That's right. Oh man. Well, and that's most of what I had for this issue. Did you have any other thoughts? I
think we've covered most of it. Like I said, I do like the fact they brought this new Interpol detective in to investigate, and I like the fact that his boss is like, we've got enough crimes that we actually know. Don't be looking for something that we don't, that may not actually be connected. And like on page 21 on his boss's desk. Is it just me? You see better because you have the guided view. That looks like the picture of the Joker on his desk. Is that that's what it looked like to me? But
if it's not, it's somebody who's cosplaying as the Joker.
That's when I was reading through this one. It looks like the Joker. Wow.
Yeah,
I'm not surprised over an Interpol. Yeah.
I'm curious about what was going on in the Bat books around the same time that would have explained Interpol having an active Joker picture up. Well, not seeing anything that's ringing any bells, but that's all right.
This was 89. So this was right after A Death in the Family, where Joker became, he was the ambassador for Iraqi or whatever the country was. He was the ambassador for. So that may have been why he ended up on their desk.
Yeah, it could be
because Joker's like nations and using diplomatic immunity and stuff, and that's what I was wondering.
Well, yes. I'm checking it out, and the issue of Batman that came out in the same month is part of A Lonely Place of Dying, which is Tim Drake being introduced. So it's been a little while. It's been over a year since Death in the Family.
Wow, it didn't seem like it's been, but yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, but
time flies.
I don't think not that I actually have to have an excuse to have Joker in there. It definitely can be just an Easter egg, without a doubt. Make it kind of feel like it's still part of the DCU that way.
Yeah, because this didn't have a whole lot of ties to the DCU compared to Suicide Squad, which are using a lot of the villains for DC universe. So that may be another reason why it's there, is just to help remind us that, hey, even though we're on our own thing, we are still part of the DCU.
Right. Now, about that Interpol agent, do you think this is setting up a new night for the Checkmate?
That's what I'm wondering. Again, I don't remember offhand if he comes tonight or not. We'll find out together, I guess. But yeah, it's a possibility because, again, he is going to be meeting, I'm sure, at least, I'm sure he's going to cross over with Peacemaker at some point, at least. So I'm wondering if it's a night, or maybe, again, because I know sometime, if I'm not mistaken, was it right after this? Peacemaker had his own miniseries.
Ooh, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure when that was.
I'm wondering maybe they're trying to set him up to cross over, because since he's crossed over the Peacemaker part of the storyline, either not, or maybe he's in the Peacemaker miniseries if that's after this.
Now, his miniseries was a little bit before this. It was in 1988. So this was before miniseries was before he joined Checkmate. Yeah. And specifically before Janet's Directive, where he would have been just when he was roped into the fight between the various agencies.
And I was looking at Peacemaker on Wikipedia, and so that just crossed my mind, or I saw, apparently he's supposed to be in the new, the upcoming Suicide Squad film played by John Cena.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, I was looking on the Wikipedia to see that, and it's true or not. Yeah, supposedly he might be in that one, so that'd be interesting.
Right.
That's another story entirely. A few ones there.
Yeah. Well, as a character, he's right up the Suicide Squad's alley.
Yeah. I can definitely see him. Yeah, at least for temporarily. I don't see him being a long-term member because he's not quite stable enough. That's part of my problem I have with the current Suicide series for the last, since the New 52, is that they're trying to make Harley Quinn such a big part of the Suicide Squad. I'm like, she's not Suicide Squad material for, yes, they would use her for a mission or two, but she's too unstable to be such a prominent member of the Suicide Squad, in my opinion. But again, I prefer John Ostrander's Suicide Squad runs. So I'm just, again, getting old and complaining about these things. Because that's what I do.
Well, we're here to talk about comic books that are 30 years old. So we can complain if we want.
That's what to do.
Exactly. But I also can see like Peacemaker, even depicted here, is not too dissimilar from Deadshot. So Deadshot had his own mental problems too. So
very much so. Yeah.
So he could be a replacement for Deadshot. You don't need both of them. That's too much.
No. Yeah. And somebody I've heard complain about Deadshot in the Suicide Squad movie, so I won't get into that again. But but yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing Peacemaker kind of, because I've heard that Will Smith isn't coming back as Deadshot, so I could definitely see Peacemaker being that replacement, if you will.
Nice.
Well, do you have any other thoughts on this issue or anything else you want to?
Not for this issue. Did you have any thoughts?
No, I think we've pretty much covered everything. I just, as I always talk about, I think the art on this is very great. It's great artwork. It's more of a realistic 4-color artwork compared to the Suicide Squad, which we'll be looking at here in a few minutes. That's more of the Suicide Squad's a darker, more gritty, more realistic, where this is a brighter 4-color kind of realistic. So I do like both the styles, and I think both styles are appropriate for each of the books they're in.
Yes.
So we have on that. We'll go ahead and take a quick break so I play some promos, and then we'll be right back.
I don't know, but I have heard we'll be back after this word.
Hey there, your old friend Aaron Moss here. Brotherhead. If you listen to any of my shows, you'll know that I love the 80s, and I also love podcasting. So I decided to combine the two and start a new podcast about, the 80s. But I'm not alone on this journey.
Nope. Just like a few other new podcasts on the Headcast Network, I have decided to join in and be his Lady J to his Flint, his Barbie to his Ken, his Leia to his Han, or, as some of you know me, as his wife, Michelle. While I'm a bit younger, I still am a huge fan of the 80s. Needless to say, many things from the 80s will be brought up for discussion, so why don't you kick back, drink some Ecto Cooler, and join us as we take a retrospect of the 80s.
Justice League International, Bwahaha Podcast, a new monthly show chronicling the adventures of the JLI era by Keith Giffen and J.M. DeMatteis. We'll be going issue by issue in release order, tackling the core Justice League title, Justice League Europe, and the quarterly book. Along the way, we'll take time out for special episodes covering various spin-offs, cartoon appearances, the infamous TV pilot, and much more. So join me in an ever-changing roster of guest hosts as we celebrate your favorite JLI members, such as
Martian Manhunter,
Batman,
Dr. Fate,
Black Canary,
Fire,
Ice,
Maxwell Lord,
Oberon,
Captain Marvel,
Rocket Red,
Captain Atom,
Mr. Miracle,
Guy Gardner,
Booster Gold,
Blue Beetle,
Nort,
and many, many more. Justice League International, Bwahaha Podcast, coming March 2016 as part of the Fire and Water Podcast Network. Want to make something of it?
Born out of violence, adopted in chaos, teenager Cassandra Kane is seeking the answer to a question. If nurture can undo nature, raised to be an assassin, Cassandra is trying to burn the pages of her past and write a whole new future.
So I'm throwing gasoline of vengeance, and I'm lighting matches with my pain. Now I'm setting fire to those who've burned me, as I watch my past go up in flames, up in
You can write to us at thehunterspodcast.com or go to Twitter at HuntersPodcast. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and your other podcatchers. This podcast shares a feed with the Hunters Podcast, the Batgirl Cassandra Kane podcast. Cheers.
Commercial's over, don't you know? Now it's time to watch the show.
And welcome back from the break. Tim will be rejoining me just a minute to talk about Suicide Squad. But before we get that far, I've got a character profile for this episode. This time out, we're looking at Valentina Vostok. Her first appearance was Showcase number 94 from 1977, created by the magnificent Paul Kupperberg and Joe Staton. In-story information, alter ego, her name is Lieutenant Colonel Valentina Vostok. Team affiliations is Checkmate, the Agency, Doom Patrol, the Soviet Air Force, U.S. Secret Service, and Black Lantern Corps. Ooh. Notable aliases, Negative Woman and White Queen. Abilities, experienced espionage operative. And a little more for her backstory. Lieutenant Colonel Valentina Vostok of the Soviet Air Force stole an experimental Russian fighter plane in order to defect to the United States. The plane malfunctioned en route, and she crash-landed at the spot where the original Doom Patrol had apparently perished, and was fused with the negative energy being which formerly inhabited the body of the Doom Patrol's Negative Man. However, instead of being able to send it out of her body under her control, Vostok gained the ability to transform herself into such a being. Years later, it was revealed by Doom Patrol villain The Brain that Niles Calder, founder of the Doom Patrol, manipulated Valentina's transformation into a superhero in order to create a replacement for presumed dead Negative Man. Assuming the name Negative Woman, Valentina defected to the United States and became a member of the second incarnation of the Doom Patrol for several years. Valentina became romantically involved with teammate Joshua Clay, aka Tempest, but broke off the relationship due to the nature of her powers changing to match that of her predecessor. Her body became permanently radioactive, requiring her to constantly wear radiation-blocking bandages all over her body, and the radio energy being would emerge from her under her mental command. Ultimately, when Negative Man was found alive and rescued by the Doom Patrol, the negative energy abandoned Valentina and returned to Larry Traynor. Though she was initially furious at having lost her power and being replaced by Negative Man, his ultimate rejection of the power allowed for Valentina to leave the Doom Patrol on good terms, unaware of the fact that negative energy being would ultimately return and claim Traynor again, turning him into Rebus. Valentina would go on to work for the American Secret Services, being involved with a number of U.S. government departments, including serving for a time as the head of the agency and working for the original incarnation of Checkmate, which is where we're at now. Powers, Valentina formerly possessed a radioactive soul self and was capable of flight and intangibility and could generate minor explosions upon contact with positive energy. She no longer possesses these abilities, as I just talked about. In live action, other media appearances, Valentina Vostok appeared in Legends Tomorrow, portrayed by Stephanie Cornelius in the Season 1 episode White Knights and Failsafe. In 1986, Vostok is a Soviet scientist employed by Vandal Savage to develop a composite nuclear man, aka a Soviet firestorm, similar to Firestorm.
Savage had witnessed Firestorm in action a decade previously as part of Rip Hunter's team. Savage and Vostok captured Dr. Martin Stein and tortured his allies to force him to divulge the secrets of the Matrix. Vostok discovers that Stein is part of the Matrix and forces him to merge with her. She ignores his warnings that the result would be unstable without the quantum splicer developed to stabilize the fusion process. Jefferson Jackson, the other half of Firestorm Matrix, encourages Stein to fight Vostok's control, giving Jackson an opportunity to touch the composite and break Stein free. Vostok loses control of the Matrix, but in the energy release is a nuclear explosion. Hunter's team escape, thus Vostok's status is not revealed. Ooh, maybe we should return sometime as a Negative Woman. Anyways, in animation, Valentina Vostok as Negative Woman appeared in the third season of Young Justice in the episode Nightmare Monkeys. In a dream segment, Beast Boy calls Doom Patrol Go. She is voiced by Tara Strong. This incarnation of the character takes Negative Man's place as a reference to that of Raven's role in Teen Titans Go. Anyways, and that's it for Valentina Vostok. For more on her, besides listening to my show where she shows up, you can also check out Waiting for Doom. Some friends from Down Under have a Doom Patrol podcast where they look at the various appearances of the Doom Patrol. I'm sure they've talked or will talk about her at some point in the future if they haven't done so already. But that's going to do it for this episode's character profile. Let's go ahead and go back to me and Tim Price talking about Suicide Squad.
All right, squad mates. Me and Tim's back. We're going to talk about Suicide Squad number 35. The cover date on this was just 1989. The on-sale date was October the 3rd, 1989. Cover price was $1. The title of this was called That Hideous Strength. Written, as usual, by John Ostrander. Penciler, Luke McDonnell. Inker, Jeff Isherwood. Letterer, Todd Klein. Colorist, Carl Gafford. Editor was Don Raspler. And this was reprinted in the Suicide Squad Apocalypse Now trade paperback, which came out in 2017. The cover was penciled by Luke McDonnell and inked by Carl Kiesel. And again, that information in the synopsis all came from Mike's Amazing World of Comics. It's a great site. So this issue, Granny Goodness and the female Furies engage Lashina and the Suicide Squad in battle. Although there is some general fighting, most battles are fought individually. Captain Boomerang has his hand full against Virum Vundabar. Shade falls to Mad Harriet. Vixen is fighting Stampa until Barda knocks the female Fury down. Fury down, not Fury. Nightshade carries Artemis to the Shadow Dimension. Count Vertigo is seriously wounded by Kanto. Major Victory's suit is damaged, leaving him nearly powerless against Granny's soldiers. Meanwhile, Granny herself fights Amanda Waller. Poison Ivy tries to help, but her poison is useless against Granny. All the battle serves as distractions while Lashina fights Bernadette to the death. When she is triumphant, Granny accepts her back into the female Furies. Lashina then delivers Flo to Granny for training. She then suggests killing the rest of the humans. And that's where this issue ends. Before we actually look at the cover of this one, you said you're reading Suicide Squad at this time when it came out?
Yes.
Stand?
Yes, very much so. Let's see, what year was – let's look. Now I'm curious about exactly how I was getting these issues at that time. Oh, okay. So I had just finished graduating from college, so I was no doubt getting these from a comic book shop at the time and not necessarily from the spinner rack. So I'm sure this was on my pull list.
Right.
So, yeah, but I loved this Apocalypse arc. It was so awesome. I mean, there was everything. A part of it was just great. Just the setup and the fact that this was a whole storyline that was set up all the way back from issue number 3 when the Furies first attacked to try to get Glorious Godfrey out of Belle Rev. So it was amazing to see this all come together. The whole arc was just great, and this particular story is just one of those hallmarks of Suicide Squad, which I just call it's the bloodbath issue. You know, they have
pretty much.
That's what they have. It's like it's something you can't do in the other superhero comics because it's the superheroes,
right?
But since so many of these characters are super villains or second tier heroes that you don't know if they'll survive. They're not guaranteed to live. This is just one of those bloodbath issues. And it was pretty surprising to see that it just took the whole issue to just tell the fight. I mean, the way the next issue box read before this particular issue, I could have sworn there was like a hint that this story might get wrapped up in this issue. And this would be the end of the arc. But instead it's like, oh no, we're not done. We still don't know who's going to and so many of the characters are, mortally wounded. It's like, you don't know if they're going to live or not. It was a big turning point issue to me in a lot of ways. So, I just loved it a lot.
This is the cover of Suicide Squad number 35. It's got Lashina standing front and center, looking up towards the camera. All around her is members of our Suicide Squad laying on the ground, beaten on the ground, all torn up. She's holding, appears to be an unconscious, bleeding Amanda Waller in her hand, her shirt in her hand, her jacket. It says Female Fury at the bottom. Tim, this cover, what are your thoughts on this one?
This cover is gorgeous. I mean, Lashina looking straight up in victory with a big smile on her face. And she just looks stunning on this. This was a primo example of me of McDonnell and Kiesel's teamwork on this. That's why it looks so good. And it's interesting of seeing all the characters there is that we have so many Suicide Squad members, and we have Bernadette in the corner. She's the only non-squad member who's on the cover, and that's pretty telling. So that's just great stuff. Now, one thing I found that was wonky looking is looking at Lashina's left foot that's like next to Shade, but it almost looks like that she's either stepping on top of him or like she's color form splatted over top of the thing, and like he was drawn on it and just drawn over him. I'm not really sure. It just looks a little odd, and like that shows how much I've spent too much time studying this cover before talking about it with you. So that I hadn't really noticed that before until I looked at it just now, just yesterday when I was revisiting the issue.
Yes, that didn't even stand out at me until you mentioned it. Now I can't unsee it.
So
yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Do you see they're saying yes? Here's they see they're standing on a little bit, or you see it's color form. It was plastered on. I think it was just somewhere along the way the art was off just a little bit there.
Right.
But other than that, minor gripe. Like, it was a great cover. I love the blood on Lashina's wardrobe, on her metal coverings, and the tears in her, her pant legs, showing that she's been in a battle.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, she's been a big fight, but she's happy.
So it's a great cover, except for that minor detail about where Lashina's standing. It's a great cover, and I do like that. We talked about on our own that this is been, or you said this has been on since issue 3. This has been the whole Duchess thing that's been going on. The subplot with her is finally kind of wrapping up, and this is where it's all been leading for the last couple of years to this point. So let's go and go to the issue itself. So again, this is a continuation. It's the Apocalypse storyline that's been going on for the last couple issues, and it's going to continue for another issue or so. So first, we'll start with going, Tim. What are your thoughts on this issue?
Being the big fight, there's like not really much subplots being moved forward, anything like that. There's lots of great character beats mixed in with the fights. But there are also still a lot of pair-ups and fights happening all along the way, which is just one of the hallmarks of Suicide Squad. So it's like they'll have these things happen. It's like because they're not a team, they just go out and fight. So it's not usually teamwork happening.
Talking about on the break that, the issue 13 of this in this JLI, it's kind of like that where both teams meet together and there's a bunch of little mini fights going on between people. Mm-hmm. It's kind of reminiscent of that.
That's very true. Well, I mean, we get immediately Captain Boomerang being classic Captain Boomerang, trying to find the weakest new god that he can take out just to take somebody out. And he learns the hard way, even the weakest one isn't an easy mark. So we get that
still right away.
Exactly. He's still a new god. But, Vixen does really well throughout the issue, even though we don't get a whole lot from her. It's like wherever she's at in the fighting, she's still hanging in there. She's held in her own the whole way. Shade matching up with Mad Harriet is like, here's Shade trying to still be like the hero. And it's like, he's not prepared for the level of insanity that Mad Harriet brings. And that's why she can take him out. But so that was pretty awesome. And then Amanda Waller versus Granny Goodness is just worth the price of admission all the way. That's the one that's the fight that goes on the longest. It's spread out throughout the issue a bit more. So, and Amanda really should not stand a chance against a new god at all. You know, she should be taken out as fast as Boomerang is. But oh no, she holds her own the whole way, and it's just great. I'm trying to picture. I usually don't hear the character voices in my head when I'm reading something. You know, I'm like trying to see if I would fit Ed Asner's voice in with Granny Goodness, since he did her voice in so many of the animated series cartoons, or the voice of Amanda Waller from the Justice League Unlimited cartoon. I'm not really. I just don't hear it, but it doesn't matter. It's a great sequence. All those fighting.
Oh, very much so.
Mm-hmm.
And I can still hear Ed Asner as Granny Goodness, just because. Yeah, that's the main voice I've heard for Granny Goodness. So yeah, that's kind of embedded in my brain.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and yeah, Count Vertigo is like so haughty and trying to take out Kanto. It's like, no, Kanto's just like, nope, you know. I learned how to deal with this when I was a kid.
I trained on this kind of stuff. What are you talking about?
That's right. I do this stuff to relax. And like, boy, he's just calling Vertigo a worm all the way. It's like, that's so cold. Well, so we had the continuing battle going on, and finally Granny gets the best of Amanda just in time for Big Barda to come in and face off against her herself. But that actually is not as, that's not as central to the story as Lashina and Bernadette finally facing off. Right. It's the big thing that's been building up. That the whole reason that this story was here is Lashina wanting to get revenge on Bernadette, and outright just kills her. And it was a big, brutal moment. So as Lashina stands victorious, it's like, the battle is over. I claim my rightful place with Darkseid's elite. And Granny Goodness says, welcome home, dear Lashina. It's like, oh yeah. that's Apocalypse all the way. Just like, yeah, the horrible thing you do is like, that's what's going to get rewarded on Apocalypse. And the final page of deciding what to do with the humans that are here. And now we know finally get the reason that Lashina brought Flo along at all. We really did not have it was not easy to tell what the purpose was. We knew that there was no way it was because she actually wanted to help Flo.
No, that's not in her character. So
no, and it's so much worse than we could have guessed. I did not see it coming back when I was reading this. Did you see that twist?
No, I gotten used to Duchess being a member of the team, even though we knew she was working to her own purposes. We knew she had her own agenda. I didn't expect. We know that she abducted most of the team or tricked them into coming, but yeah, I honestly didn't expect her to turn them all over to Granny like that at the very end. Yeah, I did not see that coming, and giving Flo to Granny to recruit.
that was just showing that, oh yeah, she's still Apocalypse all the way. There was like no sentiment whatsoever.
She's been on Earth, she's been helping the Suicide Squad for the last 2-3 years, but deep down, yeah, she's still a female Fury. She's still, one of Granny Goodness's children, if you will.
Oh yeah, and just she had used the word worm throughout many parts of her storyline as Duchess to refer to humans. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, that really does kind of literally cement how she, as either a citizen of Apocalypse or a god of Apocalypse herself, views humans. It's like, you are just under my feet. Just amazing. Now, the only nitpicking thing I have is because, of course, what else we're going to talk about? We have the time here. We're going to talk about the nitpicks. Is at the beginning of the story, Barda is saying she needs to get her Mega Rod back from Lashina, but then On page 17, there's Barda holding what looks like a Mega Rod. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be a Mega Rod or if it's supposed to be a blunt staff that she grabbed from somebody else, but it looks like it's supposed to be her with her Mega Rod again. And that she has it there on page 17 and on page 18. But
I'm looking through it.
Yeah. But Lashina obviously has the Mega Rod still because that's what she uses to zap Bernadette on page 20. So
right.
I think that might, if I was going to no prize it, it's like Barda grabbed something else off of one of the other combatants and was holding that for her fight with Granny Goodness. But it does look like, it does look like that she's got her Mega Rod back in those two panels, and that's like, but that was like a big part of what she's trying to do is get it back, so she can get herself and the humans out of the rest of the Suicide Squad out of there.
Yeah, for me that was just an artist mistake because they're used to drawing her with that. Maybe they forgot that she didn't have it. Because I mean, it's not like she uses it.
No,
she stands there and wields it. So I'm wondering if maybe just an artist representation. He forgot that she had lost it and accidentally drew it in there. Is what I'm wondering.
Right.
But on that same note, I like back on that page where you were talking about where she was mentioning that she has to get her Mega Rod back. How they do have a reference that we talked about earlier that references other books. It does reference Just Like America 30 when she lost it.
Right.
Shag's cover.
Oh yeah, and that was also not to be a downer. That was actually her last appearance in the Giffen DeMatteis issues, I think, except as perhaps a background or side character. She doesn't make any more regular appearances in that series herself. So it's like, oh, that's pretty. But the Mr. Miracle comic book is on its way soon. So yeah,
that was great too. That's something else I've talked about covering at some point in the future because that was awesome. I love that book.
Oh yeah, that book was a lot of fun.
Well, again, like I said earlier, this time frame, like I say, from very late 80s through the 90s, I was buying almost every DC Marvel comic out there. As I talked about, in my opinion, 85 through about 95 is probably like the golden age of comic books for me. That's, in my opinion, when they were running on all cylinders. For the most part, they're using continuity the right way. I mean, you had the Superman books during the Triangle era, and they were overlapping. Spider-Man tried to do that for a while. It was a great era run for me, And so I just love this.
I'm right there with you. This period was just magic. There was just a lot of magic at that time. But yeah, this issue is just awesome. It's just an amazing issue with an amazing cliffhanger at the end. Was there any particular matchup or fight that you've had as your favorite?
Like I said, there's a lot of. They're all, like I say, you can't go wrong with the Amanda Waller and Granny Goodness fight because again. And that's one thing I've commented the entire time I've done this podcast. I love Amanda Waller. Most humans would kind of back down from Granny Goodness, or like Captain Boomerang against his battle, lose quickly. Amanda Waller stands up to Granny Goodness. I mean, she stands up to Batman earlier in the comic, in the run. She stands up to Granny Goodness. Amanda Waller doesn't back down. So that's, again, I guess that's kind of a give me that one there because it's Granny Goodness and Amanda Waller facing off. But the also really good one I like is that you mentioned also the Mad Harriet and Shade, the Changing Man.
Right.
I thought that was a good battle. And Shade's got the madness suit. He went through the madness zone to get to Earth, but he's still not prepared for someone that's as insane as Mad Harriet. So,
right. I was trying to remember if they had established that the M-Vest was and the M-Zone were madness, if that the M stood for madness by this point, or if it was after his monthly series with Peter Milligan that established that and created that concept.
I thought they had, but I may be confusing it with his ongoing series a little bit later, the Vertigo run. I thought he had established his madness earlier, but I could be, again, mistaken on that.
Well, I do know that this is that, not to give away spoilers, but his appearances in Suicide Squad end fairly soon after this and go straight into his ongoing series. That's coming very soon. I got it through 60 issues. So it was yeah, I had a great time with that one. I was very much more experimental during that period than maybe I am now. I guess I'm just boring and don't want to. But it was great stuff. Yeah,
I just looking on Wikipedia, and it looks like his series came 6 months after this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's looking like maybe the Madness Zone may have came from that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just looking real quick. Because originally the M suit stands for Morocco vest. Is what the M vest stands for.
Oh, really? Interesting.
It's named after the name for the inventor. Morocco vest is what it's called.
Gotcha.
And so he comes from the Meta Zone, the planet Meta, another dimension. He had his own series in '78, which I've read.
Oh, nice.
Which was canceled in the DC implosion.
I never read that series, but the cover of the first issue to me is like is a stunning cover.
Very much so.
It's a timeless image that if you've seen it, you know that you've seen it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, very much so.
Very memorable cover. So now the art, and we haven't talked too much about the artwork in this issue. I mean, it's Luke McDonnell on the layouts, which is, this is Suicide Squad is his baby. So
right.
Sometimes I don't necessarily like or get as excited about McDonnell's staging. I sometimes think the characters can look a little static and a little awkward. Sometimes that's how it comes across to me. But when he's paired with a talented inker or an inker who goes well with him, that helps a lot. I got to say that it is kind of jarring to go from Carl Kiesel on the front, who I think is like one of the best inkers in the business, period. I love his inking work, and is very strong definition kind of inking on the cover. And then we have Jeff Isherwood's finishes on the inside, which is a much scratchier kind of abstract and less precise sort of style. It kind of works for the mood of the book.
Mm-hmm.
I still like the inking style. I think I still would like it better because some of the facial definitions kind of get a little lost. I'm looking at the 2-page splash page is a glorious splash page at the beginning of the story.
Yeah.
But I think it still kind of would look a cleaner inking style would make some of the characters stand out and not blend together as well. But I'm kind of mixed because I think from a tone perspective, it goes with the story and the horror of Apocalypse so well. Mm-hmm. And it even just feels like a war comic.
Yeah.
I'm torn.
I've commented before. I prefer the 4-color, the bright superhero colors and inking and all that, the more defined as you were talking about. But Suicide Squad, just the type of book it is, to me, the way the inking is on this, it's a little darker. It's a little, like you said, more scratchy, not quite all the way there. It's really fits the Suicide Squad book. And that's one thing. Like I say, even I wouldn't want this on like a Superman title or a Green Lantern title, but for Suicide Squad, it worked perfectly.
I can totally see that. Yep.
And I do I talk about panels and stuff here. I do like the panel on page 21, the very bottom corner panel where Granny Goodness is saying, "Welcome home here, Lashina. Did you bring your dear old Granny a present?" I just love the way that face is drawn on that. She's like, "Do you have something for Granny?" For some reason, that image stands out at me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there are. That's a great close up face. the close-up faces are really good in this issue.
Oh yeah,
I completely agree with that. It works. It almost works better with Isherwood. I think that's where his strength is, rather than the busier scenes. It's like Captain Boomerang's face when he's trying to figure out how he's going to just survive. The close-up on Barda after she helps out Vixen, and we get a close-up of just her. It's like, oh, that's a beautiful picture of Barda's face. And even on that page 21 at the top, where we have, it's not a full close-up of Lashina face alone, but it's, you can see her face very well when she's delivering the neck snap to Bernadette, and the glee in her face. She is way too uncomfortably happy in that moment, and you get it from that facial expression. So they deliver that so well.
Mm-hmm. No, so I was using the same word. The glee on her face is just evident. And 2 pages on page 19, the bottom corner where Flo is sitting there with Amanda Waller's head in her lap. Just the expression on her face is it's just heartbreaking. You got this ordinary human that's on this planet of gods, if you will, just because she's trying to impress and she wants to be with a guy that she loves.
Mm-hmm.
And she's faced all this horror, and she sees Amanda Waller who's been there for her. Is she dead? Is she, Flo doesn't know, and the one person that she wants to be there for her isn't on planet at this point. It's just, the way that it's drawn is just heartbreaking.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. That moment does just get you.
Very much so.
Mm.
But I say, I do agree with you that while thinking on this is good, especially for what the book is, the close-up panels, the close-ups of faces and all that, are a whole lot better than when he's doing a crowd shot or even a distant shot. He's really good at the close-ups. Another pen I really like is on page 12 when Artemis follows Nightshade into the Nightshade dimension. And she's on that little rock with her hounds, and that demonish face is just arrogant fool. This is my hell, and here you are my prey.
I'm fighting the urge to say that in my Mephisto voice, but that's okay. Unless that's what listeners want to hear, because
go for it.
Okay. Arrogant fool! This is my hell, and here you are my prey. It's just great. That's just
very nice. That fits very well.
Thank you. Well, and looking at her face, she's got the fangs. She's got the single, just the red eyes. No pupil or iris. It's like that's a purple Mephisto.
Yes. Oh, very much so. Yeah. If I had just this panel here out of context, I could very much see, you take this panel and throw it in the Fantastic Four or a Marvel book somewhere. And that could very definitely be. I do like, I'm here to take you out. I'm not scared of, darkness. And all of a sudden she gets there and Nightshade's like, this is my realm. You're here. Double checking. We don't really see the result of that in this book.
No, we don't see that. I think we do see. I think we see Nightshade come out. I think she's in the crowd shot again. Let me double check. I'm trying to remember.
I was glancing through looking, but I don't see her offhand. But I may be.
No, I think you're right. And also, this character Artemis, I was double checking. I was pretty sure that this was her first appearance as a female Fury, and that's the research I looked for said that was looked like that was the case, that this is her first time.
I knew most of the other Stompa and Mad Harriet and Bernadette. I knew of all of them, but I wasn't aware of Artemis. I wasn't sure if this was her first appearance or because again, I like the New God stuff, but other than like Mr. Miracle and the occasional book here and there, I don't love it. So I get lost sometimes.
Gotcha. Well, I did read the Mr. Miracle, the Jack Kirby Mr. Miracle collection.
Okay.
Just a year or two ago, which I think has like the first 18 issues of his series. And like the Furies are in it quite a bit. No surprise.
Oh, okay.
There's even a bit where they all come to Earth and are like just living with Barda and Scott and Oberon. They're just there. They're just hangers on. Yeah, it's pretty wild. I enjoyed that quite a bit. But yeah, and it's like the four typical female Furies plus Barda are the ones that we see there. You know, Bernadette, Stompa, Mad Harriet, and why am I spacing on the fourth one? Shame on me. Oh, and Lashina, of course. I keep forgetting that Lashina would be one of those female Furies because she's not fighting on the same side as the female Furies right here.
Right, yeah. She's been a Suicide Squad. She's been the Duchess for the last couple of years, but yeah, she's actually a Lashina. She's a long-standing member of the female Furies.
Now, I also liked on the next page after that, on page 13, where we have Vixen and Major Victory fighting back to back for panels there, which is kind of just interesting pairing because usually we've had a lot of times with Vixen pairing up with Bronze Tiger to fight and work together in a fight. They're not really working together there, but you can see that that's like they're just they got crowded at the same spot and
they're fighting the same enemies.
Yeah, exactly. And Major Victory kind of showing that it's like wanting to give up, and then Vixen shows that she's not giving up. So it's like, if I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, I better keep going. So.
Yeah, no, I almost forgot. That's one page I was going to comment on because I do like his suit shredded. That's where he gets his powers from. But and he's ready to give up. But yeah, like you said, he watches Vixen and he's like, look at her. She's overwhelmed. She's outnumbered, also overpowered, but she's not giving up. Like he's like he's very much, even though he started off in quotes as a bad guy over in the Outsiders book. He's not really a bad guy. He's just been given. I think he's just been given bad information, and he's wants to be a patriotic American. He wants to fight fascists, and that's what he says here. These apocalypse guys are the ultimate fascists. They fly in the face of everything I always said I believed in. I've always talked a good fight, trying to prove I can do more than just talk. And if I do die here, I'll go down swinging. That's Major Victory, and that just the writing on this book is just magnificent. I just love what John does as far as this, not only just the storytelling, but the dialogue that comes out of these characters' mouths is just very, if taken the wrong way or not done by a good writer, it could sound very corny or very cliche. And maybe it's just my love for John Ostrander, but I think the way he writes it in here, it comes across, while slightly it's on the comic book side because it's a comic book, it's believable to me.
Right. Well, it's like Major Victory definitely, I think, is also, I actually did think of his yes, no, he's a patriotic villain. He's he's always fighting on the wrong side of things, and his arrogance is why he fights for them more than anything else. And it's been an interesting comeuppance he's had as part of the Suicide Squad. So this is an interesting part of his own arc kind of evolving. It's like he's had to learn to act and adapt and actually become a better person because and realize that I have not been the hero that I thought I was. I think it's what I don't know if he's really getting there or not, but he's like kind of.
Very much so. But and I do love, I just love his characters kind of wrapping up. Again, I haven't read ahead if I forget. I think I remember what happens, but it's been a while. But I just do, like you said, it's his character evolution from. Hey, did you read the Outsiders book?
Yes,
when it came out.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I have it on the Outsiders from issue number 1. It's like
I didn't get a copy until a bit after that, but I went back and read all those. A friend of mine had a lot of those, so I read most of those books. And that was fantastic. But yeah, I do like you're saying. His character he's got a story. This is just a massive fight scene, this entire issue, but John does find a way to work in some character development and showing, like, for instance, Major Victory's character arc is coming around, and he's coming from the arrogant, I know everything, even though I'm on the wrong side, to, well, maybe I can learn something. And under the wrong writer, Major Victory could come off just very one-dimensional, very stale.
Oh, yeah.
And that's one thing I talked about before that I love about the Suicide Squad book. Most of these are villains that are one-dimensional. They're used to further a plot. But John takes all these villains and he makes you care about them.
Mm-hmm.
You care about Dr. Light, Captain Boomerang, Deadshot, where in other books they're just, a joke or, someone there for the hero to stop. But John brings these characters. Well, who cares for Deadshot? Well, once you read the Suicide Squad book, you'll care about him because John brings something to all these characters.
Oh, absolutely. It's a very interesting formula that we see also later too. Is that because yes, he does the thing of even the ones who are going to die, he tries to make you care about them before that. Mm-hmm. He gives something to be like, oh, that's nice, or ooh, didn't know that this character was so deep, or oh, that character's been through so much, and they're like, nope, they're dead.
And that's better than just bringing the character. Because a lot of creators will bring a character in just to kill them off, and they don't really do much with them. But yeah, right. John likes to build these characters up because again, if you care about a character, if you know about their background, their mindsets, when they die off, it's going to be more heart-wrenching. It's going to be more of a punch to the guts. Yeah,
exactly. Well, and since JLMay's big thing was covering Countdown to Infinite Crisis and what happens to a particular character in the 80-page giant, that I wonder why I was thinking about that parallel just now.
What you talking about? Nothing bad happened in that book. Moving on.
Sure.
No, I agree. Yeah, 100%. That was.
But this is just fun. This issue is just so much fun.
Okay, well, again, I think we've pretty much covered this. Unless you have any other thoughts on this issue.
Not particularly. It's just a great story. I'm loving to revisit it. This whole story arc, and especially this issue. It's been lots of fun. I'm really glad you had me on to talk about it.
Oh, man, as I say, if you want to come on again, I'm glad to have you anytime you want to come on. Be a regular host. I don't, because I enjoy talking. I say you bring a lot of insight, and yeah, it's a little better with me talking to somebody else instead of me sitting here talking to myself about these books. Because a lot of times I'll say, "Oh, this is great. This is a great page. I love the dialogue. I love the art." Just because, like you said earlier, you had that little nitpick about the cover. Sometimes we got to have these little nitpicks because, like I said before, usually the art and the writing is so damn good in these books. Mm-hmm. It can get a little boring. Oh, that's another great book. I love everything about it. Nothing wrong with it. Let's move on. It gets a little boring praising these guys because they do, again, like we both said, this was in my opinion, you kind of agreed, this was kind of the height of comic book storytelling for the most. But again, there's always going to be a failure here or there, something that doesn't go right. But overall, this is my era. This is when DC and Marvel, for the most part, was firing on all cylinders. And this, continuity, in my opinion, was at its greatest. Because again, some people don't like continuity. Some rely on it too much. I like this era where I think it's just enough continuity. These are tied together, but you can come in without having to read, Suicide Squad 3 and still find out what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And a lot of that, I think, is the way to handle it. And you can tell a writer that doesn't mind the continuity so much, John, apparently, whereas writers that don't care for it, so oh, no, continuity's bad. Look how bad it is. And so they're writing terrible continuity, so it's very forced in just to prove how bad continuity is. But again, that's my own complaint I've had for years about some of these writers. But unless there's anything else that you know in either of these books.
No, it's been a lot of fun.
Is there anything else you want to pimp out? Anything you're working on right now, or anything Appearances on?
You see, I should be prepared for things like that. But I've got my regular appearances on exactly. Got my regular appearances on the Batgirl Cassandra Kane, blah, blah, blah. I cannot talk. Why can't I talk? I have
that problem all the time.
My regular appearances on the Batgirl Cassandra Kane podcast on the Right On Network, which can be found at thehunterspodcast.com because it shares a feed with the Hunters Podcast. That's been both of those shows are really great. You should check them out. And we have mentioned the JLI podcast a couple times, Shag's JLI Bwahaha podcast. I was on that just 2 months ago. Yeah. Covering Justice League America number 32 and Justice League Europe number 8. And actually, when I was looking at what was the on sale dates for Suicide Squad and Checkmate here, Justice League 8 was out in the same month as these two issues. So for a treat, go check out that podcast as well.
Yeah, I'm a little behind my podcast. I've got that to listen to, but I haven't gotten that far yet. So there it is, yeah. Yeah, so
I have a couple other things that might coming out, but it's a little too soon to talk about them yet, but they're on the way.
All right, well, maybe we'll talk about them next month, because, again, I'd love to have you back. I've enjoyed talking with you, and, yeah, you're a great guy, and you're a great co-host, so, yeah, definitely.
Thank you. I will check my calendar.
All right, and I guess that's going to do it for this episode. As usual, you can catch me here on the Headcast Network. At one time, I had 4 or 5 shows. Now I'm up to 8 shows.
How do you do 8 shows? Jiminy Criminy.
I'm still trying to figure that one out. We'll see if I get burned out or explode at some point. But yeah, I do my Head Speaks, which is my original show, talking about comics, movies, whatever. I'm currently working on the Armageddon Inferno, and then I'll be covering, or I'm sorry, the way around. Alien Agenda and Armageddon Inferno, the wrap up the Armageddon 2001 storyline. And then I'll probably be jumping back over to the Power of the Atom after that, because I love the Atom. Then I have that comes out the first Tuesday of the month. Usually the first Thursday of the month, we're going to have a new show that me and my wife's doing called The Starbright Project, where we're looking at the Quantum Leap TV series from the late 80s, early 90s.
Nice.
My wife, she's done a couple podcasts with me. She's, I really like that. I want to do some more. So we've started 3 podcasts that she's on. That like, pretty soon you have your own network. No, I'm with you. But yeah, the second Tuesday of the month, I have my G.I. Joe, a Royal American Headcast show, where I talk about the G.I. Joe comics and cartoon from the late 80s, early 90s. The second Thursday of the month, we have a show coming out. Actually, just came out the first episode as Voyagers Cast. We talk about the Voyagers TV show from the early 80s. This isn't the Star Trek Voyagers. This is a time travel show.
Yes.
Yeah, like I said, I'm doing Voyagers. Oh, the Star Trek? No, another one. Better one.
With Phineas Fogg.
Yes. Phineas and Jeffrey, yes.
Mm-hmm.
The third Tuesday of the month, we have this show, Suicide Squad and Checkmate. The third Thursday of the month, if things work out right, we should have another new show called Retrospect of the 80s, where me and my wife, Michelle, looks at everything from the 80s, one of the greatest decades, in my opinion, around. The fourth Friday of the month, or I'm sorry, Friday, where did I get that from? Fourth Tuesday of the month, we have the Starman Manhunter Adventure Hour. We're currently looking at the Will Payton Starman book, and we may have someone else showing up over there, Tim. And if things work out right. And
Interesting.
The final Friday, I keep saying Friday. The final Thursday of the month, we have Bravo Team. I've moved it from Tuesday over to Thursdays. Bravo Team is my G.I. Joe companion show where we look at anything else G.I. Joe related. So, in fact, I think we're going to be looking at the G.I. Joe yearbook number 1 here, probably this next episode.
Oh, cool. I remember that. That was great.
Their own feeds. Yeah, they have their own feeds, and they're all available on the Headcast Network, so be sure to check us out. If you like what we're doing here, I've set up a Patreon page. I haven't done much with it yet. I need to finish that, but check out the Patreon page at patreon.com/Headcast Network. Here, come join us over on the Facebook. Facebook is facebook.com/groups/Headcast Network. I had pages for each of my show, but seeing how I'm building on more shows, and it gets time consuming. I decided to consolidate them all and just put them on the Headcast Network group to make things easier on me. And because again, I like to take the easy way if I can. But come over there and join the chat over there for any of my podcasts. And I think I've put myself out enough today. I think that's going to do it for this episode. Join us next month when we look at the next next issues of Checkmate and Suicide Squad. I haven't looked, but I think next issue will tie up the Suicide Squad on Apocalypse, if I'm not mistaken. Again, I haven't looked through these ahead of time, but up here soon. Great storyline. And Tim, thank you once again very much for joining me. I love talking with you. Great guy and a great co-host. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me. I love it. Had a great time.
Good. Glad to hear. Well, until next time, Squad mates, dismissed.